Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts now.
Hello, Adam, and happy belated Father's Day to you, my friend.
Well, thank you, and happy belated Father's Day to you and all of our listeners who are fathers or father-like figures, as you put it.
Father-like. Yes, very well said. Let's jump right into it. I want to talk today about those that are thinking about retirement, and specifically what in one way we deem early retirement.
Mm-hmm.
The focus today is going to be on retirement earlier than age 65. And that's a key one because what we really want to focus on is healthcare. So
Yep.
I'll just set the stage. I feel like we've been having these conversations more frequently. Maybe some of that is change in expectations with jobs, COVID, changing world. Some of it, frankly, is just the summertime, right? I feel like we get clients that they go on vacation and they go, you know what? I could get used to this.
Yep, absolutely.
So like good financial planners, what we want to focus on today really is what are the dominoes? What are those key factors or the situations that we would see? We want people to feel prepared, and news alert, healthcare is not cheap.
Wow, that's news to me.
Breaking news. So
Yeah.
I don't know, let's do it. Let's talk about what are the conversations like between us and our clients or prospective clients on pre-65 retirement?
Yeah, I think the conversation around healthcare, I think, becomes one of the most critical, or at least it's one of the least kind of factored into that retirement decision pre-65. I mean, we often see that, it's age 62. People kind of have that as the benchmark for being able to access Social Security benefits.
Yep.
I think people inherently know age 65 is Medicare, but don't necessarily understand how much or what the process would be to actually get healthcare coverage to fill that gap until they're eligible for Medicare. And I think obviously we'll go through a lot of those factors, the costs, how to get coverage, where to get coverage. But I think we often see that as kind of the biggest variable to making an early retirement actually work from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, and we don't want there to be like this crazy shock factor, because if you've worked for and with corporations your whole life, like what you pay as part of a group healthcare plan is going to probably can be very different than what the cost is going to be to go out on the marketplace and really get your own private insurance.
Yeah.
And I also think there's always that danger on stereotyping. What are you really going to need in retirement? And sometimes that online calculator says, well, you need a certain percentage of your working income. Hey, by the way, if you don't have your mortgage anymore, hey, this is all the income you need. And you weren't really thinking about that out-of-pocket expense pre-65.
Yeah, we often see it's the simple napkin math of, well, I know what I was earning. I know what my expenses are. I can start to add up what income I'm expecting in retirement, but it's that variable or the unknown of, well, what's healthcare going to cost if I retire at 63, for example, and not really factoring that into that equation. So I think right off the bat, the default for a lot of people retiring pre-65 is they have some sort of availability of COBRA, which is essentially just extending their group coverage through work. So once you retire, if it's pre-65, you can essentially extend your existing coverage exactly as it is from a coverage standpoint for up to 18 months. Now, the trick is you're paying your cost, and you're also going to pay the employer's cost, whatever they were essentially sharing on your behalf, and potentially an extra 2% for some administrative costs, since you're no longer an employee and you have to pay outside of kind of your payroll. So it's essentially, you could be paying up to 102% of whatever that plan costs to be able to continue that for 18 months.
Yeah, and we're not able to kind of pinpoint a specific dollar amount, right? This is age dependent. It's,
plan.
You still have to plan, deductible area. There are many things that go into that, but the key is, if you were used to paying that $200, $300, a paycheck. The key that you said there, I just want to highlight it. You're covering the employer's portion of that too, that may have been a benefit to you, but wasn't coming out of your pocket. So,
right.
A 60-year-old is going to pay $800, $900, who knows, $1,000 a month. And that may not be something that you were factoring into your plan.
Right. Yeah. And there are special considerations. There's other caveats. If you are close to Medicare age, there would be, we've seen it, it's rare, but there is a chance that the employer, depending on kind of their rules, they may help cover some of those costs. But I think as a general rule, yeah, you can expect to pay much more than you are used to be able just to continue your existing coverage.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things I mentioned there is you may be able to control the cost a little bit by thinking about like, what is that deductible? Right. If you're not really familiar with healthcare plans, the idea in theory is that the higher deductible you have, maybe the lower the premium that you have to pay. So you're saving yourself a little bit every month on the premium. However, if you do need to get some sort of healthcare, that's out of pocket expenses all the way up to that deductible. So, what we typically see is a great group plan has low cost, and by the way, typically lower deductibles, where when you go out on the open marketplace, it's usually like a double whammy. The premium's higher, and it's usually a higher deductible than you've been used to.
Yes.
So we don't, as financial planners, we not only need to help you cover that cost, but it's quite often that in this situation, we're building into a financial plan, hey, we should be conservative here and say this $6,000 deductible, let's plan on that probably being paid out of pocket this year. And that's another expense you may not have been thinking about.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned it earlier. I'll throw it out there again, right? The COBRA is kind of one option to continue your existing coverage. Going out on the ACA marketplace, right? Getting individual coverage through the marketplace is kind of another option, but
affordable care.
Yes. Sorry.
Obamacare.
Yep.
Many different ways to.
Any other names?
Nope. I'll stop there.
Okay. Yeah. It's important to be able to compare plans, because it's in your example, and I agree. We typically see with employer provided coverage that those deductibles are typically lower, the premiums are typically lower compared to the ACA plans, right? The marketplace plans. You really have to take in all factors to be able to compare. You're essentially comparing apples and oranges at that point, because they are different structures. To be able to wrap your head around what's this actually going to cost me in the end if I actually need to use it, and not just focus on what's this premium versus what's this other premium.
Yeah. So here's the other hard part for us, right? Situationally, if somebody needs to go out on the Affordable Care Act, private insurance, whatever it's going to be, and get some sort of plan, part of what made the Affordable Care Act what it was and is are what's called tax subsidies. And that's based on the income that you show in the given year. So we can't even tell you for sure, what is it going to cost you as an individual without thinking about, okay, let's project out what is your income literally going to be that year, whether you're working part-time, not at all. Are you on Social Security? Do you have a pension? Do you have a spouse that's working? Yeah. It's a little bit hard, but there are thresholds there. If you're a married couple and you both need health insurance privately and you're earning more than $70,000, you're not getting all the tax credits that you could be getting. So even from our standpoint, what's our number one job for people in retirement? Help recreate their paycheck. But not all paychecks are created equal. And if that drives the expense, we need to be really careful about that.
Yeah, yes. I'm glad you said it. That is a key for us. And like you said, not all paychecks are created equal when it comes to retirement, right? Depending where that income is coming from is going to be taxed differently. So if it's coming from your non-retirement savings at the bank, and not necessarily coming from a retirement account that's going to look like taxable income to you, that can have a huge impact on not only just filling that gap of what you need from an expense standpoint, but then also qualifying you for some tax credits to make your cost of insurance actually less.
Yeah. So I know we had a client situation a couple of years ago, and I shouldn't say client. Was not a client, was somebody we were talking about working with. I don't want to make it sound like we gave bad advice. No, but truly just knew this was the situation. It's actually why we got the call. somebody in the process of getting private insurance, kind of plugged the numbers into the Affordable Care
Mm-hmm.
Act website and said, I'm expecting to make $60,000 this year. Whatever the situation was, they needed to make a big withdrawal from their IRA to cover expenses. And then it
Mm-hmm.
came tax time the next year, and the IRS says, whoa, 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 whoa. All those credits we gave you, by the way, time to pay the piper back. So
Yeah.
even if you get the credits retroactively, if you did not qualify for them based on where you pulled income, again, we're just talking about sticker shock. These are things that surprise people in a very negative way, where if you can have the conversation on the front end, understand how these systems work, that's why you have a planner like us.
Yeah. So, and I kind of, in prepping for this conversation, I kind of broke it down into like two different camps, right? We've seen kind of the unplanned retirement that is, less voluntary, where it is, we've seen people late 50s, early 60s, and they get laid off because the company is downsizing, or they're just, essentially replacing an older worker with someone who is younger and less expensive to keep on payroll. Those involuntary retirements, right? There's only so much planning that you can really do. On the plan side, if somebody knows that they're looking to retire pre-65, I believe we talked about this in another podcast. An HSA, a health savings account, can be a great tool to help bridge that gap until Medicare, to help cover some of those healthcare expenses. And by the way, it's in a tax preferred nature. We love HSAs because they are triple tax preferred,
advantage,
tax free,
whatever. Yep. Good to taxes.
Words are hard. So you're able to put the money in tax deferred, right? You're not paying the taxes on it when it goes in. It can grow tax free within it, and as long as you pull it out for qualified medical expenses, it comes out tax free. It's kind of one of the best things from an investment or taxable type account, to be able to put it in without paying taxes and pull it out without paying taxes.
Yeah, but here's the planner caveat. We have to say it. Saving into that plan is not without its own restrictions, right?
Of course,
you have to qualify for it depending on the type of plan that you may have at work. There are limits, much like we talk about your limits to what you can put into an IRA. Same thing with an HSA. So the earlier that you can start doing these types of things, the better. So that's an important thing to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess so. The other thought that I had here was, and you mentioned it, we often think about saving for retirement into those retirement plans, and we just talked about if you have to pull money out of there, it's going to be taxable. I think if anyone, and let's quantify this, the latest study I read was like 45% of people plan to retire before age 65. Whether they actually do or not, I guess there's probably different studies for that, but the vast majority of if that's a coin flip that you're thinking about retiring before pre-65, the HSA was a great thing. Build a cash reserve, like build that extra cushion that's not having to tap into retirement dollars, not only for that tax flexibility, but because it is quick access to cover things like deductibles if you can't get all that money that you really in an ideal world could have gotten into an HSA.
Yeah, I know I've made this joke on other podcasts, right? It's the one of our favorite words is flexibility, right? And that's an exact example of where we would love to see that, having money saved in different types of accounts to be able to control, right? And kind of do that planning on the fly when it's needed, to be able to pull from a savings account, knowing that, the taxes are minimal, being able to pull from a Roth IRA, potentially knowing that the taxes may be tax-free. Having a retirement account, again, knowing it's going to be taxable, but being able to combine all of those things, putting all those pieces together to be able just to control your taxable income in any given year, because again, that drives a lot of the process when it comes to healthcare pre-65.
Yes. So one more point that triggered into my head as you were saying that. Just a point of clarification, a health savings account is not a flexible savings account. Sometimes there's confusion in the workplace on one or the other. A health savings account is not a use it or lose it situation. It can roll over year to year. So we often feel comfortable telling people to save there because at some point in your life, you're probably going to need medical care that's going to eat into a deductible. Like you're going to use this at some point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it triggered another thought on my end. Another caveat for the HSA, the health savings account, is that you can't use it to pay insurance premiums. You can use it to help meet your deductibles, pay your expenses ongoing. So if you did retire pre-65, you started Cobra, or you bought a plan on the marketplace, or you just bought private insurance, you can't necessarily use those funds for premiums, but you can use those to help meet your deductibles. And the idea there being, if you're relatively healthy and you don't expect to kind of blow through your deductibles, you can choose a lower premium plan with a higher deductible, knowing that you have the savings there to be able to be pulled tax-free to help meet those costs if they even occur.
Solid point.
Great.
So the other thing that I kind of wanted to wrap this up with is I think we're seeing more and more frequently people being willing to kind of transition into retirement, where again, if it's non-voluntary, that's one thing. But even there, we often run into people that go, well, I don't know that I want to fully retire and just sit around all day. Maybe I will work part-time. Maybe I will volunteer. Maybe I'll dabble in, what we deem small business activities. The key there always is you're probably not going to get insurance in those working environments, but we are big believers. I guess I shouldn't say we. I think you are too. You can tell me if you don't. I believe that part of planning is like mental accounting. And if we can kind of isolate, all right, you're 61 and we don't really want to take Social Security yet, and we know you have to get your own healthcare. Here's the gap that we need to fill. So we can mentally go, here's the money I'm going to go earn to fill these gaps. And sometimes that puts us in a good enough headspace to, move forward with the plan and not let the high expense that you see healthcare being deter you from doing something that might give you greater life flexibility and quality of life.
Yeah, I know we discussed this on a different podcast where if it's just understanding that, and the example you laid out, right? If I know I need to go earn $15,000, $20,000 a year to essentially just cover healthcare, but that means I can either choose my own hours, work in a different position that I know is less stressful, whatever that may be, that may be all the confidence that I need to be able to make that decision and feel good about transitioning into retirement, rather than just pulling the plug and hoping for the best, with healthcare and costs and whatever withdrawals I would need to fill that gap. Just knowing, or at least being able to pinpoint, and you said it, right? It's mental accounting. I absolutely work that way. Being able to just match up an expense with some income, and just those net each other out, and now I can focus on everything else. That's an okay way to go about it too.
Yeah, so maybe that's the way to kind of conclude this. The key here is to have the conversations. If you're thinking about that early retirement, again, early by Medicare standards in this conversation, then let's not be surprised by anything. Let's take inventory of where income's going to come from, what assets you have, what the expenses can actually look like, and then let's just try to pair it up. And that may mean for some people, we're going to rely on savings accounts. For some people, it's going to be fill that income gap with some sort of earned income, but know what that is. That's what we want to do. We want to empower people with the information they need to feel comfortable with the decision.
Yep. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
Wonderful. Cool. Anything you want to add to this conversation?
No, I think we touched on them all.
Love it. I love it when we get it all in 14 minutes and 37 seconds. I have no idea if that's accurate.
Well, we'll see.
Right. Thank you for the time again, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thank you. So long.
Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in the show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.